Strange but true stories, tales from the light side, the dark side, and the other side. I'm Steve White. We've said many times on this program what a strange and interesting place this island home of ours can be, right? Weird and unexplainable things that happen to so many people who happen to find us on YouTube and they wish to share their experience with us. We are grateful for those folks, and this story was sent to us by a viewer and a fan of the program. You could say he's always been sensitive to the paranormal, but it was one strange night that he came face to face with something that he still struggles to truly understand. Before I go into my story, I want to give a little background about myself. Throughout my life, I've always been aware of things that go bump in the night. It wasn't anything I've been taught. It was something from an early age that I knew was real, as real to me as my own family. In fact, some of my earliest memories as a child was me in my childhood home standing at the top edge of the stairway going to the second floor, while the rest of my family was in the opposite end of the home on the first floor. Now, at the time, my father would turn off all the lights in the house not being used, typical dad stuff. So, as I stood at the top edge of the stairway looking into the darkness of the second floor, I knew they were there. And by they, not my family, but entities. They were just out of my sight in the darkness, looking back at me. I didn't know who they were, nor did I know anything about ghosts or what a ghost event was at that age. But I did feel and know they couldn't really be seen like I saw my family members, and they didn't care to be seen by me or my family, and they mostly stayed quiet and to themselves, except when they didn't. I didn't know why they were there, but it didn't really bother me either. For the most part, growing up as a child, I didn't really think about them or even really keep it in my memory, except for when things, sometimes would go bumping in the night, and a few other handful of times when our family would have some large, eerie, and weird thing happen where my folks, mostly my mom, would get creeped out. Such as seeing someone walk past a hallway when no one was in that part of the house, or seeing someone move past a window and look to peek out that window when there was nobody in the home and there was nobody outside, or lights that might turn on, and of course random knocks being heard somewhere in the home, my young sister of just a few years old playing and talking to someone at the end of a hallway when there was no one else in that part of the house. And then, of course, our legendary family story of when my uncle, who was house-sitting in our home for a few days and had events which scared him so bad, he did not leave his bedroom for 2 days to eat or drink, or even use the restroom. And he was in that state when my folks returned home and found him. Eventually, my parents moved, and as I grew into my early teenage years, I never really thought about any of this again, even when those things that do go bump in the night seem to almost target me and become more frequent and obvious. And I would get creepy feelings all the time when I was home alone. Still, I didn't suspect any of that may have been a ghost or a haunting. Until one night, I was home alone doing my own thing. All of a sudden, I had a feeling that really grabbed my attention for the first time that I was really aware of, that I was not alone. Now, the only way I can describe the feeling is the kind of feeling you get when you are alone in your own space, perhaps your car, and you've parked in a parking lot somewhere to have lunch you just bought from a drive-thru at your favorite fast food restaurant. And while you're eating your lunch, enjoying your own private time and your own private space, let's say watching goofy videos on your phone and laughing out loud, you become aware that someone is watching you and has been watching you for a while in their car parked next to you. That brief moment of suddenly becoming aware of that hollow sinking feeling that erupts in your gut, at least for me, is the feeling I have come to know when I am no longer alone in an area, when no one else I can see is near me. My mind is usually engaged in something so far off when this happens that it comes at me out of the blue and it catches my attention as if someone just splashed cool water to my face. I will also add, when this happens to me, I instinctively, if it's a natural reaction, become acutely aware of everything around me, as if my senses click into overdrive and, time itself slows down. Everything in my mind stops. Whatever I was engaged in prior to stops, and for those few moments, I'm only hearing, seeing, sensing, and feeling everything around me. If something were to come to my mind, it's usually at this time when it happens, but I mostly now just turn it off when it happens. A bit more on that later. So going back to my story, while I was home alone and all of a sudden felt that feeling I was no longer alone, everything seemed to stop around me. Even the sound of, the normal humming of house noises that's in the background, those seemed to stop. And I heard nothing but a whisper, softly and slowly, calling my name. Well, that was it. Like lightning, I jumped up, grabbed my coat and shoes, left the house in the middle of the night and walked, a couple of miles away to a 24-hour 7-Eleven and sat outside that convenience store until someone got home and I could reach them via the payphone there. During this time, I didn't know or understand what was going on. It seemed to only happen to me and no one else in my family, so I kept it all to myself even as things started to get worse. Terrible nightmares, things of a demonic nature visiting me and talking to me. Knocks on my window at night. Eventually, every night. And then to other family members. And other family members being attacked by something. My bedroom door opening, closing, locking, my bed shaking at night and waking me up, my friends as an older teenager being told when nothing else was there with us that we were all going to die. And a week later, all of us at the same time having horrific accidents in different parts of our town at the same time, of cars losing control and going through gas pumps at gas stations and other cars losing control and rolling over with each of us involved. Even when my parents moved again and again, it seemed to follow for years. Eventually, it slowed down, and my family was spared from these problems, and eventually, as the years went on, and I let religion play a more active role in my life, those things all slowed to a near stop. As I got older and into my adult life, I eventually got married and had a loving family of my own with lots of kids. I've learned the art of ignoring those supernatural things for my family's sake and, for their happiness and their peacefulness. My wife is aware of my past and has been witness to some of the odd things which still come up here and there in my life, and has even had her own experiences since being married to me, but we ignore them and don't give it any attention, and usually those things just go away. My wife jokingly has stated that perhaps I am the one who is haunted, not the places where I have lived. Well, this brings me to the story that I truly wanted to share. For many years, my family had a timeshare to some condos in St. George, Utah. And once a year, my family looked forward to going there and just spending a week away from distractions of the world and everyday life. We always had a great time, swimming in the pools, visiting different state parks, going to one of the few still standing ghost towns, such as in Grafton, Utah, and even driving into Vegas and spending a night so my kids could see all the lights, go to the M&M store, and see the little circus events at the Circus Casino. One night in the summer of 2010, our family was spending a week at our timeshare. My kids wanted to watch TV all night and sleep in the front main room of the condo. Finding the recliner to be more comfortable than the bed in my room, I decided to stay in the front room with them as they fell asleep from watching television. Eventually, the timer to the TV turned off. My kids were fast asleep, and I let myself drift off to sleep too. As I sleep, it's common for me to not have any dreams, as I just sleep quietly and restful sleep. This night, as I was sleeping, I came to attention of me sitting in the recliner of the room with the lights off, TV off, and my kids sleeping, just as everything was when I went to sleep. But a young woman, maybe late teens, early 20s, with faded blue jeans, a button-up red flannel shirt that was not tucked in but hung loosely over her waist, with medium to light brown hair which was mid-length to about the middle of her back and hanging down from her face. I don't remember the color of her eyes now, but they were normal in appearance, if not sad. So here's this woman in our condo. Before I could try to rationalize anything, she jumped towards me, grabbed my shirt just below the collar with both hands, and while shaking me back and forth, she's screaming at me to wake up. She screamed this over and over and over while shaking me with all her might to wake up. Yet I was watching her as she was doing this to me as I was sitting in the recliner. Her hair was fluttered as if she was in a car driving at high speeds with all the windows down. As she was doing this, I felt like she was extremely anxious, really afraid, like a person might be when they see their life flash before them in a tragic accident. She also seemed confused, in shock, as in she could not believe what was happening. And she was at the edge of exploding in tears. As she was shaking me, I found myself slowly opening my eyes from sleeping as if someone were shaking me. My eyes opened and I'm at this point wide awake, trying to process what is going on, what is happening. This dream, if I can call it a dream, felt incredibly real. I was confused when I woke up from something I thought and felt was real and not being able to make any sense out of it. I finally tossed it up as an unusual dream and I closed my eyes to go back to sleep. And as I was falling back to sleep, I heard movement and noise in the kitchen that was near to me from where I was sitting in this small condo. And immediately I had that feeling that I was not alone and everything got quiet. And I was aware something was there with me. Since almost all of my past experiences with these things that knock in the dark have been from unfriendly things, I don't entertain them, and I quickly create distractions by turning on the TV loud and turning on lights and getting involved in something so my mind is not left open and wandering. Hence, in my early statement about turning my awareness off when I realized I'm no longer alone, and so I did this that night, from about 4 a.m. until the time when the rest of my family woke up around 8 that morning. Normally, I wouldn't have thought much about this, and I would just let the whole thing fade out of memory. Until that morning when my wife came to me to let me know that my daughter was afraid of something that she thought she saw that morning, and she asked if I could comfort her. Well, I thought that was weird because of my experience from the night. So I talked to my daughter to provide some comfort, and while I was talking to her, she told me that she saw a person in her bathroom while she was getting ready. The person looked like a shadow. It had long hair like a girl would, and my daughter could see through her. Well, we packed up for the day and we left the condo. And we didn't have any other experiences while we were there. Since then, I've thought about that night several times. Near the condos where we stayed is a main highway, I-15. It's less than a half mile away as the crow flies, and that highway is always busy, 24 hours a day. I've wondered if the girl whom I saw was someone who lost their life in a car accident that night. I hadn't really revisited these memories until years later, and at that point I no longer could recall the dates when it happened, and I couldn't find any information to narrow down who the girl might have been years later when I looked online about it in St. George, Utah. But the girl I remember her as if I just saw her and talked to her yesterday. Of all the people in that city, why did she come to me and try to wake me up? I wish I could have done something to help her. She seemed so afraid of what was happening to her. I've said prayers on her behalf that she may be at peace, that she may not be alone and afraid. Whoever she is, or she was, I hope she's at rest and in peace. This has been another strange but true story. So, what do you think is going on in this account? A lost soul on the highway? Or a very vivid dream? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Also, if you have a strange but true story you would like to share with us, we would love to hear about it. Send us your strange but true story in an email to strangebutTrueStories2, that's the numeral 2, @gmail.com. It may take a while to get to it, but, again, we'd love to read it. If you enjoyed this video, give us a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't already. Sign up for notifications so you know when the next video drops to the channel. As always, thanks for watching this video. I'm Steve White. Until next time.